What's up, everybody? Coach Ben here. I'm at my academy, School Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Arcadia, California, here with Jim from Jiu-Jitsu Magazine. What's up, Jim?
We are practicing social distancing. This is another social distance episode. Quarantine. Shout out to the mom for the mask. Ben, we talk about jiu-jitsu. We go down the rabbit holes and we kind of reflect on our journey coming up. And then one of the topics that came up was the Gauntlet.
Yes.
Going into the customs of jiu-jitsu. This is kind of a polarizing topic because some people believe in them. Some people despise them and call it hazing. What's your take?
Yeah, so let's define what it is first. There might be people that have never experienced this if you're new to jiu-jitsu or you don't train jiu-jitsu. So the gauntlet or whipping is basically when you get promoted to a new belt, you will take off your gi top, and sometimes you'll just be shirtless if you're male, and you'll walk down a straight line. Sometimes it's down and back if you're getting promoted to a higher belt, like a brown belt or something. And then while you're walking, people will take their belt off, or their belts will already be off, and they will whip you with their belt. It is extremely painful. It depends, right? I think it's extremely painful. I was whipped at every single belt. So that's what it is. That's the general definition of the gauntlet, right? So you get a new belt, and then you walk down in a straight line, you get whipped. That's the gauntlet. What are your thoughts on this, Jim?
I will say I understand both sides of this argument, but
Did you get whipped at every belt?
every single one.
Not black, right?
No, even at black.
You got okay. I didn't get whipped at black.
Yeah, I got, and so my take, personally, my personal preference, I dig it. I dig it, and
I'm glad you have that point of view, Jim, because we didn't really talk about this, because I'm about to hit you with the other side, and I would say that even a couple months ago, I would have probably had a different opinion, but just things change, So continue, please.
So yeah, me as a personal preference, I appreciated it. I embraced it. You could even say my episodes of the Gauntlet were a bit on the sadistic side. I remember when I got promoted to brown belt. Do you remember the I Fight creed that Rodrigo had?
No. Oh, yeah, I do.
I
Yeah.
I memorized that,
yeah.
and I walked down the gauntlet and recited the whole thing, front and back, and I walked nice and slow and leisurely, because my whole take is, for me, it was a practice in mental control, because here's the thing, it hurts, and it hurts like hell. These rabid animals.
Were you shirtless on all of them?
Shirtless on every single one, but they would go and whip you so hard, and here's my take, and this is my meathead take on it. I figured the whippings hurt. Either way, it hurts. So flinching or covering up isn't going to make it any better. It's still going to hurt. You're going to get yours. So what I would do, I would put my hands behind my back or my head, assume the position, and I would stroll down and walk, a nice and leisurely pace, as if it didn't hurt. But here's the thing. It hurt immensely, but to me, it was a crowning moment of what the accomplishment was. It meant a lot to me. And it was, you know what? Let me be an example. Let me exercise mind control. It hurts either way. So embrace the pain, embrace the hurt, show some self-control, mental discipline. To me, that's all it was. And I used to practice a gauntlet when I was running academy, but I've actually stepped away from it a little bit because I do understand both sides.
So you were in the military.
I was in the military.
So you kind of, I would say what you just said just now was a very military-like take on something like this. So yeah, we will get into why you stepped away from it. But first, let's talk about real quick why is it we do this.
Yeah,
right?
Why do we do this exactly?
Well, I looked it up, and I couldn't find like anything concrete. It was just like anecdotes, and so basically, people assume that this is some kind of the gauntlet, the whipping is some kind of like ritual or some tradition that's like from the old days, right? But I don't know if this is true, but BJJ Heroes and a couple other sites, some anecdotes say that this tradition did not become part of jiu-jitsu until the early 90s. It started at a Machado Academy, and it was actually Chris Howder that he just funny enough, came back from the military, and he decided to implement this because he said something along the lines of there needed to be some kind of some kind of tradition, right? He wanted some kind of endearment, for earning the belt or whatever it was. But I don't know the whole story, but that's what I've seen. That's what my research concluded too was. So first of all, it is not an old school tradition. This is actually probably a tradition that was started in America.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's many, we defined what it is. I've also seen academies do gauntlet and whippings for people's birthdays, by the way. Certain academies do this.
Oh, wow.
Which I think is very weird because then basically you're going to be whipping one person a day or very close.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. So, and what if you're the instructor? You get whipped too if it's your birthday? It's just very strange. But anyway, most academies don't have that, but some do, right? Gauntlet whipping, it's a ritual. I wrote down so many names for it, right? Certain names have good connotations, some have bad, right? So it's a ritual, that's kind of bad. It's a rite of passage, that can be good or bad. It's a tradition, that can be good or bad. It's a ceremony, okay, that's good. If you think about it as like a ceremony, okay, that's good. It's an endearing act of progression, which is good. It's brutal, yes, it could be. Is it unnecessary? Maybe. It could be dangerous. And lastly, hazing. I think the worst term to tie to this thing is hazing, because that implies the thing that I hate the most about any martial art is cultiness. Is it adds to the cultiness. So here's my take. I think that at best, if you have this in your academy, it should be optional. And it should be really optional. Like optional as in you make it perfectly okay for your student to say, I don't want to do this. So what I usually do at my academy is I will kind of tell a story first, right? And this story has changed over the years. The story itself hasn't changed. It's just how the way I tell the story changes. And some of it is biased toward the gauntlet, and some of it is biased toward not the gauntlet, right? So I usually, when I promote somebody, let's say I promote a blue belt, right? I will just ask the blue belt straight up, would you like to do the gauntlet? Don't worry. If you don't, no pressure. I usually just say it like that. Okay, and sometimes I used to tell this story, but I usually don't now, because it kind of, I can see how it might add pressure to the student to do the gauntlet. And I would tell people that, tell the whole class that, the reason we do these gauntlets is because I don't remember anything from when I was a blue belt. I really don't. I remember like nothing. But you know what I do remember? And this memory means a lot to me, is getting whipped. And also how happy I was when I was whipped. I'm also crazy. You're probably crazy too. So I'm not a normal human. I do tend to be on the more macho side of certain things. I don't mind pain. It doesn't bother me. I don't really have any mental kind of things going on in my head that it could exacerbate or anything. But there are people out there who, they might be terrified of this, right? It might cause some issues with them, right? They might quit jiu-jitsu because of the prospect of getting whipped, right? So I'll just finish what I was saying about my academy, right? So I am slowly phasing it out of my academy, and the only reason it even still exists today is because some of my students have seen the higher belts get it done on them, and they are actively looking forward to it. And I don't want to take that away from them. I feel like that would be wrong of me. So if they're begging me to do the gauntlet, we're going to do the gauntlet. We'll talk about the legal ramifications later. But one of the reasons I've phased it out, and you're probably going to say the same thing, is the reaction of kids, parents, women, and it is not really necessary. right? So why did you phase it out, Jim?
I think for some of the same considerations as far as the women and children, and also the I mean, look at our as a business owner, the
Right.
liability that you put yourself into on doing something like this.
Dangerous,
It really is.
legally and physically.
Right. And I think that the times that we went through, we came up lucky that nothing negative spawned out of this. Because what you brought together, or what you presented, was actually a very good point. Never really
What
considered that.
negative could have spawned out of it?
What if one of those, because it was very common that the belt would go astray and you'd get a low blow, right?
What if I got hit in the eye and I was blinded?
There you go. That's where I was going with it. Something like that. I mean, when you have what is it, Mike Winklejohn, who's a mitt holder. He's the striking coach over at Jackson Winklejohn, one of the top MMA academies in the world,
Yeah.
holding pads, took a toenail to the eye
Yeah,
on accident and almost permanently blinded that eye.
he's blind.
Oh, is he
He
blind
is
in that
blind,
eye?
yeah.
Well, there you there you go. And that's on something like holding mitts,
Yeah,
not taking swings at someone on purpose, and for an errant belt to just smack you in the eye and affect your vision, or even your ear and pop something. Who knows? But at the end of the day, is anything, even on the minor, is it worth it? And to me, that answer is no. And then you pile on the social influences of what are you showing the kids?
yeah.
Everyone's celebrating this
Yeah.
moment of, let's just call it violent, this violent moment.
Yeah, it's violent hazing at the end of the day.
At the end of the day,
Yeah.
it really is. So then you just have to ask your question, what are you about? What are you about? Is that what you're about? Does that showcase the intellect that went behind
So
earning
let me ask you this then,
belt?
Jim. If we both, you wouldn't take back your whippings for anything, right?
Exactly.
I wouldn't either. So why are we saying the opposite? If you go back in time and tell me, hey, you're not going to do these whippings, I would say no. I'll do them again, actually, to keep that memory.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that we are generally not high on this nowadays for our students, but we, given the opportunity, would do it again ourselves?
That's a very good question. That's a great question. And my simple answer to that is, when it comes to this item, and I'm not, and I say this at the risk of putting us on some sort of pedestal. That's not where
Yeah.
I'm coming from.
Well, I just don't want to be a hypocrite.
Yeah, don't want to be a hypocrite, but here's where I'm getting at when I say this, is that we're different than the masses when it comes to that.
What makes us different?
Because what's normal about wanting to get smacked right in the chest to where it hurts in the back multiple times?
I think you're right. You're heading to the right direction. I think our training was different. People don't train like, in the early 2000s nowadays. Like I remember, here's a good example. Have you seen that Flow documentary about Daisy Fresh, those guys in the Midwest?
No.
Okay, so
No.
just real quick, it's a documentary about like these guys that live in like a laundromat, and their coach is kind of helping them try to be world champions. They're very good, but it just looks like the training is extremely dangerous, and it's not long-term thinking. A lot of people online, I looked at the reviews, people reviewing it, they're just horrified. They're like, this is so stupid. I can't believe people would do this. It's so dumb. I kind of look at those people, and I'm like, you're right, because we're in today's day and age. But at the same time, I went through the same thing. I wasn't even a competitor. I was training like that.
Right.
I've been in rooms that were like that, and it was just advanced class.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. It's just holding, not expecting the same kind of standard or personality from others that I would expect from myself. Yeah. And again, I say this from a humble place. Not that I'm better, but I just have a different expectation of me and my capabilities, my emotional state, and what I'm willing to do. And as a general business model, it's not sound.
Yeah, I think that
It's not
I think you're
sound.
saying it right. You know you. You're it's actually coming from a place of empathy. Is you know what you're capable of, but you don't know what other people are capable or what their threshold or their tolerance
or why
is.
they wouldn't be capable of that.
Right.
Right?
Like I think about it like this. I'm like, I would do it again. I think it was great. It's one of the only things I remember. But at the same time, somebody might have, been abused as a child or something, something bad. And this is like a quote unquote trigger for them. And this is not good, right? So even if I graduate 100 students to blue belt, their first, promotion, and one student gets that trigger or gets a negative emotion from this quits jiu-jitsu, then I think it's good to just eliminate the whole thing. And I personally am going to start phasing it out of my academies, mainly for the kids, for just for the kids, for the parents, for women, for the guys that don't want to do it, for just there's no. I see a lot of potential for harm and a very little potential for, just
Reward.
Good reward. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I thought about this and I was like, what then could we replace it with? So I remember two things when I got my blue. The first thing was when I got my blue, we rolled for like 1 hour. Like I was in the center on my back playing guard, getting my guard passed 100 times. I do remember that part as well. I remember the shark tank, which I almost threw up. Everybody else threw up. I think I took it easy or something and didn't throw up. I don't know how. But everybody was throwing up outside. I was just like, dry heaving. And I think I was the first person, so people were saving their energy for the other people. Anyway, I remember the shark tank. So I think there's two other things that people generally do when they get promoted, the instructor does, is, well, first there's a gauntlet, right? And then there's also, sometimes there's no gauntlet, there's a shark tank, right? Sometimes there's no gauntlet or shark tank, there's a throw.
No,
right?
no, explain the Shark Tank.
The shark tank is basically you go in the center and everybody in class takes their turn to roll with you, usually about a minute, and you're going to be exhausted very soon because everybody is going to be fresh. I remember that shark tank very clearly. I remember getting thrown as well. Rodrigo promoted me to blue. He threw me with a judo throw, and I don't believe he held me up, so I ate the floor. I was barely able to break fall. So I have my own thoughts on this. I actually think the throw is more dangerous than the whipping. But I think the shark tank is safer generally than both of them.
Well, and the throw is in the context of what you guys actually learn.
Yeah. But the thing is, I'm not going to name names, but when we had our throws at Rodrigo's Academy, there were some black belts that didn't know how to throw. Okay, they didn't know how to load people up on their hips. They didn't understand kazushi. They didn't know. So I saw a couple people getting thrown that, I mean, they could have easily gotten injured. Rodrigo was really one of the only people that could do a nice, he'd do like an ogoshi, I believe. He would just gentle hip toss, boom, you're on the ground. Some people would go in for these crazy judo throws that I know they never practiced, and they would just like wrench you to the floor. And I could see people's knees just getting blown up. And I've heard these stories too. So I don't like the throw at all. The shark tank, I think, is what I'm going to be defaulting to in the future. The shark tank is good because the shark tank is just a normal part of training.
Yeah, it's a hard roll,
it's a hard
right?
roll. Now, why? I think this is very important for gym owners, especially. I'm a gym owner. You used to own your own academy too. Is the legal ramifications of all this, right? Is, are you going to get in trouble for doing this thing? So, first of all, many, we're not breaking news here. Many black belts, academy owners, world champions, highly ranked black belts, they disagree with this, right? So Kai Otero was one of the famous people that spoke out against it. He said, we're too smart for this, all that stuff, right? I don't necessarily agree that we're too smart for this. I think it's just unnecessary, But I agree with him that it should probably be phased out. So the legal ramifications are this: is when it is a form of hazing, right? And hazing, I believe nowadays is illegal in like the majority of all states. So you will be if you do this to the wrong person and they do decide to come after you, you will be held liable. And I believe it does not matter if they consent, right? Because consent and hazing are not really related. So if I say, hey, you accepted that you told me you wanted to do this.
You can't accept to an unlawful act.
Exactly. You can kill me. Go ahead and do it. You don't think that that's going to lead to jail time? So it's the same thing, right? You can't exactly. You cannot tell somebody, hey, we're gonna do the gauntlet. Do you want to do it? And they say yes. They can then come back and sue you by saying that you've hazed them, right? And that alone should be enough for most academy owners to say, I want nothing to do with this, So again, if I have students, I'm willing to take the risk. If I have a student who begs me to do it, adamantly wants to do it, I will just kind of, I'll let it happen. But I'm not going to be pressing the issue. Like, I'm not going to say, like, all right, guys, time for whipping. 'Cause that's how we used to do it. It was like, all right, line up. Everybody line up. 2 lines, whip them, and check out how badly the bruises look afterwards. And then, keep your hands up, cover your face, don't get hit in the face, cover your balls so you don't get hit in the balls. That's just, it is what it is. So yeah, I think it's something that should be not necessarily gotten rid of right away, because it's hard. You can't just do that. But it should probably in the next 10 years be phased out of existence. And it should be replaced with something that's hard but not, like all these terms we use, right? Like unnecessary, brutal, damaging, hazing. We don't need that. Like, I think a hard Shark Tank is
that's a solid one
enough.
on its own right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
Cool. Anything else, Jim?
No, that was pretty. No, I totally agree. It does bring back memories. It was a good time, but at the same time, I think it's time to evolve. And again, without judgment, for me, I may have outgrown it. And I don't want to see any negative ramifications come to anyone who still elects to do this. Because it is one of the bittersweet, well, not even bittersweet. It is one of the cool memories that we had. Like you said, if you had the chance to do it again, in a heartbeat, right?
Yeah. Well, if you asked me if I could keep those memories, I'd have to do it again. Let's just do it right now.
Yeah,
I'll do all 4 of them right away.
Let's go. Yeah.
4 blue, brown, no 3. I only did 3. So, yeah.
But there it is. Without any kind of judgment or anything, it's our thoughts on part of the culture that is it's inside of it. It's in the culture, and we're here to talk about it. Yep. So if you have anything that you would like to add to what we already discussed, man, make sure to comment on this, and man, hit up Coach BZ on Instagram at Coach BZ, and then also you have your Patreon account.
Yeah, I started a Patreon, so if anybody out there wants to help out just our podcast, we do need some new equipment. We don't have any sponsors yet. We're just doing the thing. It's patreon.com/Coach BZ. And, it's not just a donation. I think Patreon, people that understand Patreon, it's like a content creation. It's a way to support content creators. And what happens is I can release some exclusive content to people that are a part of the Patreon. I try to just make everything public, but sometimes they like kind of make it so when you post it just goes to only the people that are donating. I try to turn that off, but it's hard. And basically all my breakdowns, you know my breakdowns, right, Jim? Mm-hmm. You're in my Facebook group. All my breakdowns, the ones I can't post on my social media, there's a lot of them. Like, if I take something from Flow or like UFC TV, I have to kind of I have to kind of keep it in the background and not really, and I try not to upload those to social media because I don't want to trigger any copyright stuff, but I can post it to my own Patreon because it's just like me showing you right here. It's like it's a lot easier. So just go ahead and donate if you can. It's not necessary. Just thank you everybody for your attention, basically, and your time. And that's it.
All right. Well, there you go. Thanks again, Coach Ben. And thank you guys. And then we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Be safe.